Which profession is far less enjoyable than most people realize? I look forward to hearing from you on this question. Which profession is vastly overrated? Enjoy the show. Story 1. Park Ranger. Do you enjoy being understaffed all the time and making dog shit money because you're paid in sunsets? Do you enjoy dealing with thousands of visitors a day, most of whom don't understand basic directions? I don't even work at a park that charges fees. But there's so many horror stories from indignant asshole visitors at fee booths. The National Park Service is a mess behind the scenes, and I doubt state, city, etc. Parks are much better. I'm trying to get out ASAP. Story 2. Gynecology. I know people make prurient jokes about it all the time, but seriously, do they really think you spend your days seeing supermodels? And if you were, they're not. They're for a liaison. Also, a lot of people have very poor grooming. I used to work with a lot of doctors, and I remember their horrible stories, including one patient who smelled so bad they had to open all the exam room windows. As an added bonus, she had gonorrhea. Story 3. Professional athlete. The average pro athlete does not last long in their respective game, and while they get compensated very well, they do not make FU money like most people think. They can do very, very well, of course, but it can be cut off in a blink. Huge time and travel commitment while you are active, and you may be trading short-term financial success for a life of constant pain. Putting yourself through physical hell and constantly having to maintain your competitive advantage is much harder than the average fan thinks. Make no mistake, pro athletes have a very, very difficult job with tons of pressure and scrutiny. They're not allowed to complain either because the default perception is that they live a life of glamour and comfort. Story 4. Software developer. It's a great job if you like problem solving, and there's no drug that could match the dopamine hit of fixing a ridiculously tough bug. But there's the immense stress of being stuck on a bug when a feature needs to be pushed soon, dealing with QAs who can't give any info on bugs, and the imposter syndrome that comes with it. Story 5. Trading. Not a Wall Street's bets kid that gambles grandma's inheritance either. It's incredibly stressful, where sometimes things completely out of your control can take you out of the game, and you're responsible for it because you executed the decision. Being locked in with a monster amount of commercial risk as a necessity of business is difficult to disassociate from and creates a lot of high-stress situations. Thankfully, my employer provides on-staff psychologists to talk through a lot of the pressure. Have seen lots of colleagues fall into substance abuse issues or develop insomnia because of it. Story 6. Film projectionist. As in, when we were still using 35mm film, it was pretty awesome, but people assumed you just sat around watching the films, but it was much more involved than that. At least for me at the cinemas I worked at. Not to mention if it was the day to update the ads and trailers while preparing the new movies, it could actually get pretty stressful. Story 7. Golf course, superintendent, or head greenskeeper. You work for the members or owner, and they all complain about something small and irrelevant most of the time, and it's hard to keep everybody happy, and you have workers who call out constantly because the pay is not so great at most places, and the job can have you work 55, 60-hour weeks in the summertime. No work-home life balance at all, and not to mention 99% of course are 12 on 2 off, work every other weekend. Story 8. Interior design/architecture. 2% of my job is actually designing something and coloring. 98% of my job is getting yelled at by client who wants a specific design that is made up, impossible to build, and refuse any guidance. Your clients always are right. It's even worse when you know the project cannot be completed as drawn, and now you have to go talk to an engineer who is overworked, and a project manager that only wants to make the most dollar. Did I also mention every client thinks they are your only client? They will make changes to designs and expect 3 hours worth of changes to be completed in 10 minutes. Contractors are the actual worst people out there. They are 8/10 the ones that changes plans, don't say anything, and wonder what the fuck happened in the install, and expect discounts. They change the specs or appliances so many times just going for whichever are on sale. They also insist on using the cheapest materials to get the most high-class finish. I can tell you for a fact there are multiple $100 million homes that were built in Canada last year that cost total for contractor $400K. And they fought me on paying 25 cents extra cents on the color they actually wanted. Story 9. Working in music events. Don't get me wrong, I love my job and I can far from complain compared to people with much more vital jobs. But people see your Instagram story being backstage with an artist or working abroad and love to tell you how much you're living the life. But it can be grueling 20 HR shifts with barely any sleep, poor accommodation, especially working festivals, dealing with lots of entitled artists/guests who speak to you as though you are nothing, never fully being able to switch off, etc. Story 10. Librarian. A lot of people think it to be a nice, chill, quiet place, but I've never been more exhausted and downright outraged at our patrons. Be in mind my prior job was working at a sports bar, so I thought I'd seen the worst of humanity. The library has practically turned into the day shelter for the homeless and mentally unwell. Many of them can be fine, but so many have some serious mental issues. I've had to deal with death threats and specifically having someone tell me they'll cut my throat with a razor blade because I told them they couldn't sleep in the library. I literally had someone pull out a towel to lay in the middle of the floors to sleep. The worst was the dude that masturbated in front of a 14-year-old. I've had some of the most baffling, stupid situations to deal with while working here, like literally cleaning up shit from the floor of the front desk, some guy trying to convince me he lived a second life while showing me a picture of himself in a coffin. Same guy also showed me a pic of several bloody heads on a stack. WTF. It's fucking exhausting. Story 11. Software engineering tech. I work with a healthy-ish team at a big tech company, after being in non-tech management for most of my career. The pay and benefits are great, but you're glued to your computer constantly. And when you're around people, they're techie. There's very little diversity. The idea of golden handcuffs is absolutely real. I couldn't imagine what it's like to be a senior bringing in $350K plus but wanting to leave. First world problem, but it sucks. Story 12. Being a pilot. When I was growing up, pilots were cool, made really good money, traveled all over to exotic locations, only worked half the week, just had it all going for them. Nowadays, being a pilot means low pay from an airline that's always trying to cut costs, schedules that have you hoping a ride on one plane just to get to your actual route in another city, staying in dingy hotels to turn around and do it all again in order to get back home. My friend had to quit it all and just become an instructor so he could feel like he had a normal life again. Story 13. Middle management. Fucking have to deal with all the problems created by who you manage, and you get shit on by the C-level executives all the time. Also can't blame too much and get too ass mad because people do mistakes, and the job is not their whole lives. But some really take horrible decisions, which results me having to sit 3-4 hours in a meeting to discuss how I fail as a manager. Oh yeah, meetings with upper/C-level management are horrible. Bunch of egomaniacs that believe their shit smells better than everyone. Used to always propose ideas and everything was turned down. Got comments from upper management that I was being combative for trying to propose alternatives. Now I stay silent. But the pay is decent. I have days where basically I do almost nothing except be there to answer questions and I work from home. Story 14. Project manager. Shit only flows down, so forever sorting the below. Scopes changing. Scopes not detailed. Not enough budget. Not enough resource. Moving deadlines only ever get shorter. Last minute changes. Being dependent on other third-party contractors and suppliers. Insane levels of bureaucracy, box ticking, people who have no clue, thinking everything just happens and can be done in 5 minutes. Some staff and contractors that are incompetent. Oh, that will do. Insane level of realizing not many people have common sense or can think logically. Delivering a project is far, far more than the practical work from inception to handover. Most others don't see that. You are never working on just one project. You are working on several to dozens all at different stages. So flipping what you're working on from site work, drawings, technical documentation, local authorities, accounts, project teams, suppliers, staff, installers, engineers, etc. Funding being held for most of financial year, then being spent Q4, so a 6 to 9 month project has to be being done in 3 due to Gov department commitments, budget constraints. Suppliers letting you down, constant churn of same crap, team working days, night and weekends. So you're always on the hook and can never really shut off. Constantly thinking next steps ahead, what and where could it go wrong, finding resource. In short, don't get into project management. It's mega stressful. Story 15. I work in the animation industry. If I don't get a roll's eyes so you're a child look, then I definitely get a oh my god, you don't even have to be serious. It must be so nice not having a real job attitude. Sorry, Normie. The product may be colorful and fun. The road to get there is low wages, massive hours, no benefits, and a cutthroat competition pit of artists trying to make rent. Story 16. Being a stripper. The money isn't nearly as good as people think. The club tries to take as much of your money as possible. Most of the customers are nice, but you also have to deal with guys who get off on disrespecting you, or gross perverts. People try to rape you in VIP. You have stalkers, guys trying to follow you home from the club. Management often talks down to you because they assume you're a drug-addicted whore. Security often won't protect you unless you pay them more than you're required. Girls often want to fight you over customers. Constant drama. Story 17. A creative in college football. Dope job BC. We get to follow the team and make sick hype videos. But the reality is, you don't get a day off from August until December. Maybe get Christmas off if you don't get a bowl game. And right at the new year, it's all recruiting and off-season training. Before you know it, you're right back to August for fall camp and you do it all over again. Story 18. Doctor. 400K medical school debt, minimum wage pay for 3 years of residency training. Some residencies plus fellowships are 10+ years. Work hours 80+/WK, abuse from patients, abuse from admin, corporate overlords. Many think we're some evil, pill-pushing, money-grubbing assholes who don't listen to patients. It's just so not true. Yesterday, I spent 3 hours talking with a family about transitioning to comfort care, followed by delivering news to clinic patient that their biopsies suggest aggressive cancer. Got home. Can't even afford to buy groceries. Oh, and nurses, NPS/PAs at my place of work, especially dislike us resident doctors. They bully and belittle us. It's not sunshine and rainbows. It's mostly thankless, back-breaking work. I did not go into medicine for money, respect. I did it for my now patients, who humble and teach me things every day. Also, those special patient encounters where you see chronic medical issues dissipate and patient regain function, go down on medicines. Now that's the beautiful part that makes it worth it. Just don't even for a moment think my life is like Meredith Grey. It's more like Liz Lemon. Story 19. Musician. Don't get me wrong. It's what I love, but few people realize how much boring, tedious, non-music stuff you have to do. Accounting, scheduling clients and travel, instrument maintenance and repairs, expense forms, CRM, lost luggage, canceled flights, filling prescriptions in other states, countries, visas, and immigration. Amateur clients who want to be treated like, or think they are, rock stars, needy, whiny, big-name artists, and so much more. On average, it's about 30 hours of that stuff for every hour of playing. To me, though, it's totally worth it. Story 20. Software development, unless you really like it and didn't just do it for the money like I did. Tech interviews suck. Workdays are bloated with unnecessary filler meetings to make management feel important. Bad product design, vague requirements. And it's your fault when the client says it's not working. Story 21. Architect. It's 5% creative, 95% tedium. Long, salary-based hours, no overtime, doing tedious work. You essentially build the whole building one line at a time and make sure the electrical doesn't run into the plumbing, doesn't run into the HVAC, and that every aspect of the building code is met. It's grunt work. It's draining. And you spend hours and weeks sitting at a computer drawing and checking and drawing and checking to have the client say, how about we flip all this, and I also need this. So you start over. And then the city says, nope, you need to change. And yet so many characters in movies and on TV are architects. Story 22. For a couple years, I was a traveling support engineer and trainer. Good things were being able to visit other countries. Bad things was being in really great places, but only seeing the inside of a conference room for most of the time. Sometimes I was able to extend a stay on my own dime, but mostly it was airport to hotel to training room to a quick bite at a local restaurant, then back to the hotel. Weekends were often in airports. Sleep schedule was always off. Story 23. Healthcare. You're seeing people at their worst. They tend to lose their filter and can become quite unhinged and take their anger out on you regardless if you did anything wrong or not. You just have to keep reminding yourself that you're not seeing these people when they're in their best state of minds. After a few years, I left and got into plumbing. It's laborious work, but it beats getting screamed at every day for things that weren't my fault. Story 24. Interpreter. Especially sucks when you're in a conduit role and have no say in ending the conversation without it counting against you. Also sucks because you rarely have a say in what assignments you want to take up. It'd be way more enjoyable if you retained the right to decline assignments and had the authority to end an interaction halfway through if you are no longer being engaged. Story 25. Photographer. You spend too much time chasing new gigs and payments. Nobody hires you for your creative ideas. You get paid gigs if you deliver what the client had in mind. And nobody believes that an hour of shooting results in 3 to 6 hours of post-production. Traveling to and from the location not even counted in. The just see the moment you go click and don't realize the hours you spent on setting the right light, There's a lot of craftsmanship and only an infinitesimal amount of creativity, although everybody gets into the job dreaming about realizing his creative visions. Story 26. Pro athlete. Only really the top performers are paid insane amounts of money. Most professional athletes are forgettable and have to get real jobs. However, the grind of a pro athlete, the intensity you put your body through, I don't even think most people understand how incredibly physically tolling playing professional baseball is. 162 games is a ridiculous amount of baseball games. I implore anybody to join a serious softball league and play as hard as you can 3 times a week, not even to mention the injuries and the rehab that goes with that. Story 27. Going for my PhD to get a tenure-track position as an English professor ABD, and decided to quit because even if I did finish, I was under no illusion about my particular niche in Reformation poetry that I would get hired anywhere outside of adjunct status, a fate befalling many of those with graduate degrees in the humanities. I saw what adjuncting did to peers, to their health and scholastic pursuits, that I knew it wouldn't be for me. Managed to get a good gig in a library, and am making twice what my other peers are making, despite them teaching at 2 to 3 universities for pennies on the dollar. Story 28. Anything IT related. I've had a lot of coworkers say things, "Must be nice to play with computers all day." No, majority of the IT coworkers that I've worked with are pretty depressed, especially when you work help desk or desktop roles as you're climbing up. When you're help desk, everyone is mad at you always and takes their computer issues out on you. I've had laptops thrown at me multiple times in my life over multiple jobs. Usually it's for reasons that were outside of my control, like they dropped their laptop and their trackpad stopped working. I had another where their Bluetooth mouse ran out of battery and they threw their laptop and told me to throw it in the dumpster. I had another user throw a development laptop at me because it was slow. We didn't have our budget to buy new. You really typically only see people at their lowest and angriest, and as a result, it skews your perception of how regular people act and it makes you feel alone and depressed. This was decades ago, but I think it shaped me into who I am today. Story 29. Working on film, movie crews, even when they are union. Workdays are usually 12, 16 hours with 9 hours off in between shifts. Conditions can be very harsh in some situations, unless on a sound stage. Hourly wages, even union, have been on a steady decline since the mid-90s. The hourly rates barely keep up with inflation, let alone regional cost of living increases found in markets like LA, New York, and even Chicago or Atlanta. Quality of healthcare has gone down while cost to workers has increased. Silicon Valley has invaded the film industry, and it seems to be a race to the bottom at this point. I entered into the industry at its peak and have watched it decline greatly year over year. At the same time, watching something runs its course from the inside is very fascinating. I will say it's an industry rife with grift and corruption at all levels, so I am not surprised. Anyone want to start a podcast? Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.